On today's show, Tom Wilson and Logan Thompson are not just hot, they are forcing national team and league conversations that matter.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan HOLMI. I've covered the Capitals for the past 4 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. And as always, I want to thank you for making this your first listen of the day and for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about the strong play of number 43, Tom Wilson, and how it's not just good in a vacuum. Right now, what we're seeing by Tom Wilson out on the ice this season might be some of his best play in his entire career. A bit later, we'll talk about Jakob Chychrun and how he is that stabilizing force on the blue line, but also a key contributor on the offense. Then we'll talk about the youth pipeline for the Capitals. But just to get it going here, talking about Tom Wilson and Logan Thompson as they make their case for, hey, Team Canada, we're your guys. And they're doing it in large part, not just based on the play that we have seen here as of late, but big picture, what we have seen this entire season. You take a look at Tom Wilson being named the 3rd star. You take a look at him scoring 2 goals in the last game. And Logan Thompson making a lot of saves that many other netminders in the NHL may not have made. Good for the Capitals, also good for their case to make Team Canada. So let's dive into that in the first segment of today's show. And a big takeaway here is Tom Wilson and Logan Thompson are actively making their case for international play by producing in clutch moments and consistent performances when it matters. So start here. That's the big headline, right? Wilson had 2 goals and an assist in the Islanders game. And we know he was playing well, but that just really cements it as he is playing outstanding. 15 goals now, near the top of the NHL in goals scored. And Logan Thompson, like I said as well, stood on his head in net. And, what kept the Capitals in a game that could have definitely gone in the other direction. Spencer Carberry talked about that if it wasn't for Logan making some of those saves, that the game would have gone in the other direction. And Logan saying it was just not too long ago that I had a similar outing, except the outcome was different. I didn't make the saves. So it's good that Logan Thompson is there to be that brick wall in net when the Capitals need him. And also Tom Wilson scoring goals, leadership, physicality, the complete packages. It's the type of performances that changes how people think about roster construction for these international tournaments, i.e. the Olympics. It changes the narrative. It changes the tape. And right now the tape is stacking in their favor. And let's just get into the specifics here. Thompson made in that game a sequence of saves that shifted the game's momentum. We're talking a cartwheel glove stop on a 2-on-1 that I don't know if they're playing that well because they're making their case to make Team Canada, or they're just like, let's just really concentrate on getting the Capitals in a good spot. That it was just a couple of weeks ago that we were struggling. Let's do our best to get them back in there. And we're also talking about a breakaway stick stop. We're talking a desperation split pad save on a wraparound. Those are the, highlight reel moments. But I'm going to say more importantly, they're the kind of plays that keep a team within striking distance and gives the offense a chance to breathe. That There were some gaps. There were some breakaways. There were 2-on-1s that could have gone the other way. It's Logan Thompson keeping him in there. Like, I'm giving you guys a chance to produce some offense. I'm going to do my best. And it turned the tide in the game. And when national selectors watch tape, they don't just clock goals. They clock composure under pressure. They clock the ability to bail out teammates when things get ugly. And LT has done that all season long, did it last season as well. And Thompson did that in spades. That's Logan Thompson. Again, it's a clear-cut thing, right? He was in the talk last season of being in the Vezina finalist. Wasn't the case. And as it turns out in that case, and we're talking the different games as well, that maybe it was based on the people who were making the selections, right, that he didn't get in there. It wasn't because of his body of work. It was maybe based on some bias. But right now, I think that Logan Thompson is making such a case for himself that he cannot be ignored anymore. That his body of work, if he's not one of the front runners, then I think there's no justice in the world. Anyway, that's how strongly I feel about it for Logan Thompson. Now for Tom Wilson, he's got the 2 goals. He's got the power play finish that shows timing and chemistry. I'm talking about the goal, the power play goal that looked like it was Alex Ovechkin shooting it, but the deflection by Tom Wilson in a masterclass. I'm talking about making the most of an opportunity was Sorokin was trying to play the puck, and Tom Wilson just backhands it in there like it was easy. And he's got a knack of being around the puck in high danger spots. There's a quote from him after the game that I love because it is so Tom. He said, quote, "I think I got kind of lucky. I'll take it," unquote. And for a guy that you would kind of look at, like, when you went to high school, just a stereotypical jock, all full of attitude and look at me, look how great I am. Not the case. A guy that eats a steady diet of humble pie. I think I got kind of lucky. I'll take it. That exemplifies exactly what I'm talking about. Short, honest, and a team first mentality. And ultimately, why it's a foregone conclusion that he will, as a matter of fact, be the next captain of the Capitals. That's who he is, but the production is real, and the production comes at a moment that matters for the Olympic selection. Listen, I know people want to nitpick sample size, and to that I say fine, but this is a multiple night thing. This is more than one highlight. If you take a look at what he has put up this season, Wilson's been a steady producer across weeks, and Thompson's been delivering key saves in big moments that have put the Capitals on a hot streak. And those are the practical implications. If Canada is picking a roster that values physicality, scoring touch, and big game goaltending, those two have got to be on the radar of Team Canada. If selectors want players who can handle the chaos of international tournaments and deliver in tight spaces, those two are your guys. So the final take, me banging the drum for Logan Thompson and Tom Wilson, is if either of them is left off the Olympic roster solely because of reputation and not current play, that's malpractice. And I'll say it out loud. They earned the look. They've done the most. Team Canada, if you're listening or watching this podcast, do the right thing and put Tom Wilson and Logan Thompson in the mix there. They are most deserving. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about number 43's play. I'm talking about Tom Wilson. It's not just in a sample size. He is playing some of his best hockey ever. How is he getting it done? I'll discuss straight ahead. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. And that's what I love about it. Open up the FanDuel app, put a little bit of money on these games. All of a sudden, they get that much more exciting. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly, and player props update as guys heats up. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I want to thank all of you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. So a lot of talk here on this show as of late about Tom Wilson, and it is deserving. As he is lighting up the score sheet, he is making a case to be on Team Canada. But what is behind his recent success? Let's dive into that in the second segment of today's show. So the big takeaway to start this segment is Tom Wilson is the best offensive stretch of his career, and he's doing it while still being a physical presence that we expect. That he's not like a lot of the other enforcers, the other tough guys, the junkyard dogs that are single dimensional. Ryan Reeves, I'm talking about you, for example, that this guy can score goals as good as some of the finesse players. You know, sometimes you think of a big guy like Tom Wilson, you think, yeah, he can probably punch, he can probably hit, but can the guy score goals? As a matter of fact, he can. So let's get granular here. Wilson's numbers are screaming. He's been piling up goals and assists at a pace that projects to a career year if it holds. Recently, he notched 8 points in 4 games. That's what I'm talking about. This isn't just, your prototypical tough guy, your enforcer. This is a guy that is chipping in and getting points, scoring goals, which earned him the NHL's 3rd star of the week. So it's real. The acknowledgement, the NHL tipping their hand like, hey, Team Canada, this guy is the real deal. If you want goal scoring, if you want physicality, he's your guy. And, when you take a look at it, that is not local hype. That is national recognition. That's not me being a homer for DC Sports and the Capitals. And that 3rd star, that's an award that tells you the league is noticing and respecting what he's doing. And an about face, right? When he first came into the league, he was suspended. He was told that if he doesn't clean up his act, there is no place for Tom Wilson in the NHL. And then he realized that he is better served as a goal scorer. Pick your fights. You don't have to drop the mitts with everybody. Some 4th-line AHL call-up that's trying to make a name for yourself. Do it when the time is right, but stick to what works best for you, and that's scoring goals. He realized that he's best served on the ice, helping his team win games by scoring goals and not spending so much time in the penalty box. And we can talk about identity. For most of his career, like I said, Wilson has been known as a grinder and a physical force. That is still, what I'm going to say, his primary label. Now he's adding reliable finish, smart zone entries, and power play production. At the end of the day, you can't make him change who he is. A zebra won't change his stripes. Intrinsically, he's still a tough guy. He's still throwing hits. He's still being the crash test dummy who eats interference in open space. But now he's also finishing plays. The duality is what makes him so lethal. And from the recap, Tom Wilson struck twice and added an assist. Big impact is what we saw. And he said something that shows about his mentality. He said, quote, "1 hat trick is enough. Other than that, you want to get wins," unquote. That is Tom Wilson pulling the Capitals rope here, that this isn't about me. Take the spotlight off of me for a moment. I'm the guy that wants my team, the Capitals, to win games. And that's Wilson's tone. He's not chasing accolades. He wants wins. Set all the superlatives aside. We know who he is. Just let his work go about and speak for itself. The strategic effect here is when defenses have to account for Wilson as a scoring threat. It changes how they allocate coverage, that he's not the guy to be feared all the time in the corner. He is that, but he's also the guy to be feared about if he's got the puck on his stick, there's a good chance he's finding twine. And that opens lanes for Ovechkin, right? That, if Wilson's scoring, it gives other looks. It shades the coverage to Wilson, right? That he is considered a real scoring threat. That, it's not just Ovi scoring it. So that is what makes it dynamic when those two are playing together. When that happens, it opens lanes for the second line. It makes the special teams more dangerous. And from a coaching angle, this allows more flexibility. It forces matchups. And another thing here is don't sleep on this. It puts more pressure on the opposition's penalty kill. That how sweet was that? Ovechkin shooting it and then Tom Wilson just knocking it right in. A thing of beauty. We need to see a whole lot more from that, especially on the power play. Because when you take a look at it, Wilson's production isn't just even strength. It's power play, it's transition, it's net front, and now it's sustainable. That's the obvious worry, right? It's not just this blip. It's a month. Here's my read here. The underlying change that's visible is mechanical and structural. He's improved his shot selection. He's getting into better spots. Like I said, in the power play against the Islanders right there, he's playing smarter minutes and he's not having to be physical all the time. So this looks like more than just a flash in the pan. If Wilson keeps playing this two-way high impact game, he becomes the narrative shifter for this team. He becomes the guy opponents cannot ignore. And when you're looking at a future face of this team and what could be Alex Ovechkin's final season in the NHL, look no further than the future captain, Tom Wilson. I'll say it again. That makes him an Olympic contender and a bona fide top six winger in this league that's just kind of shoving it in everyone's face that said, hey, this guy is just a tough guy. He's proving one and all, whether you're a Capitals fan or a fan of any other team in the league, that this guy is for real. And he's getting it done on a night in, night out basis. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about Jakob Chychrun, how he has been an absolute game changer, and the youth pipeline on this team stepping up. I'll discuss next. When I'm hydrated, everything just works better. My focus, energy, mood, even my skin. That's why I've been using Drip Drop. It's a doctor-developed hydration that keeps me running at full power no matter what my day looks like. Drip Drop isn't your average sports drink. It delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar. I'm already loving it. Of the leading brands, using a science-backed formula trusted by medical professionals, firefighters, and over 90% of top college pro teams. That's how I start my day, and I think you should too. So whether you're headed to the gym before work or headed straight to work, start your day the right way, being fully hydrated, and you can do that with Drip Drop. Right now, Drip Drop is offering our podcast listeners, 20% off your first order. Go to dripdrop.com and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard and keep your body and mind performing their best with Drip Drop. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube, like the videos, and comment anything down below. All right, in the final segment of today's show, we're talking about the man himself, Jakob Chychrun. An absolute tear this season, chipping in on the offense. And yet another guy, as of late, who is being rumored to be in talks for Team Canada. Yes, a spread across the Capitals roster. We're talking Wilson, Thompson, and now Chychrun. Oh, Canada, pay attention to this team, because Jakob Chychrun is a guy that is absolutely lighting it on fire here. And this was a quote here from the Daily Faceoff. Chychrun has earned plenty of attention so far this season for his goal-scoring prowess in DC. He leads all NHL defensemen with 10, but Chychrun is playing elite all-around hockey to the point he's forcing himself into the Norris Trophy conversation. Cale Makar is the only defenseman to have outplayed Chychrun this season. Again, making a case, one of the best in the NHL, and also putting Team Canada on notice for his truly exceptional play. So the biggest takeaway to start this segment here is Jakob Chychrun is emerging as a top defenseman, and the Caps prospect pipeline I'll talk about later is giving real reason for optimism about the future. So let's zoom out here, 30,000 foot view, because beyond Wilson and Thompson, there's a structural story here, and it involves the blue line and the kids coming up. Jakob Chychrun has been a revelation. I knew that he was going to be good based on his body of work where I've seen him play before. I guess I didn't know he was going to be this good. When I talk to the people from the Ottawa Senators that I know that are fans and podcast hosts, they're like, yeah, he's good, but maybe not as good as you think he is. He has been all of that. He's being talked about as one of the best NHL's emerging defensemen. And people around the league are talking about his shot being genuinely elite. Something you don't always hear about a defenseman. And here's a quote here. He's always been unbelievable as a sniper. He's got one of the best shots I have ever seen. And that's not me hyping. That's the kind of praise that indicates a true weapon. Playing sound defensively, good. Being a great goal scorer, that is a bonus. This guy's driving play metrics in a way that translates to a real advantage, tipping it in the Capitals' favor. And when the Capitals forwards were not getting the offensive production, he was the guy to answer the bell. At the end of the day, this guy is driving metrics in a way that translates to a real advantage. When he is on the ice, the team controls the puck and creates high danger looks that leads to offense. And crucially, he's doing that while logging big minutes and handling tough defensive assignments. We know that, a lot of the weight is put on John Carlson, number 74, the minute monster. But now when you have a guy like Chychrun in-house that can contribute, that is really huge. Now, to wrap up here, talking about the pipeline, I'm talking Cole Hutson and Nick Kemp. Both got buzz on preliminary rosters for international junior duty. That's meaningful. And why is that? Because those tournaments are pressure cookers. They're where your young guys earn big reps and where organizations get real information on how prospects perform in high-stakes situations. Hutson's international production and noted historic scoring as a defenseman in the World Juniors is what is putting him on the radar. We know what his brother's doing in Montreal, right? We're hoping that we see a glimpse of that in the future. Still a bit of a ways to go with him, but a good test on the big stage under a pressure cooker to see what he can do. That's a sign the Cap scouting and development are producing players that can contribute at the next level. We know that, right? That they draft well. They, don't try to rush these guys to the surface too quick, and ultimately why you have really great options. So combine that with Chychrun as a stabilizing high-end defender, and you have the makings of sustainable depth, right? That it's good right now, but also going to be really great in the future. So the big takeaway here is you don't want to overact to a 1-month hot streak or a single preseason. But when veterans are playing at a high level, a top defenseman is emerging, and prospects gaining international experience, it's a win-win. It's a sign of an organization that does things the right way. You're building a real window. It's not win now like a lot of teams. For the team's future health, it's everything. And yeah, it's exciting to feel that quiet confidence again that, it was a rough start. And where are we going? We're in last place in the Metro, that this team has showed resiliency and also is built for the long term, right? And that's what it's all about. It's not about the Capitals being really good in this window right now. It's about the players in the wings. And that's what's reassuring, that, you're seeing the players step up. to wrap it up here is that Wilson and Thompson, it's due to their body of work that's put them in the position, making a case for Team Canada. Jakob Chychrun as well. And also the Capitals benefit from that because that means better defense, better net minding, and better offense. It's a win-win all around. Tom Wilson is playing some of his best hockey of his entire career because he's not concentrating on being the tough guy. He's concentrating on diversifying where he is on the ice, different shot attempts, and just helping the team win games. And the youth pipeline. That is what has me feeling overly optimistic about this year's team. It's built to play very well this season, and it is built well to play for seasons to come. So that is what is reassuring, and we'll see if this is sustainable as the Capitals head out west here, playing some tough opponents, some late night action that isn't just good in a window. Can we continue to see a knockout performance from Wilson and Thompson and Chychrun? And not to be lost in all of this is Connor McMichael, that this team is gelling at the right time. We're past the Thanksgiving milepost. It's all about amassing as many wins as you possibly can. I think, at long last, the Capitals are figuring it out. There's still going to be bumps. There's still going to be injuries, but it's about how your team is built and how resilient they are. And as I assess this team right now, they are in a much better position right now in what has me feeling hopeful, not only this season, but in seasons to come. Listen, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. When you're done here, head on over to Locked On NHL and NHL Game Night, where they have you covered all season long, all the way up to the Stanley Cup conclusion. You can find it wherever you find your podcasts and on YouTube. All right. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. My name is Dan HOLMI, and I'll talk to you again next time.